without a ceasefire deal in place, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to spiral. Half the population of Gaza, which is more than 1 million people, are expected to face starvation and death by the middle of July, according to a UN official. Joining us now is Dr. Adam Hamawi, a reconstructive plastic surgeon who volunteered at a hospital in southern Gaza last month. He just got back from Gaza recently. I know, doctor, I want to thank you for your time. You just got back from Gaza 3 weeks ago. What was your experience there?
Well, thank you very much for having me. My experience there, I mean, it was very intense. One thing that, as we left, the situation was dire in terms of, medical supplies, medical equipment. The people had were suffering from extensive malnutrition. And from what I understand with my contacts that are still there, the things have gotten only worse since I've left.
I mean, yeah, what did they tell you? And who do you still have contact with in Gaza today?
So I'm in contact with some of the physicians that are there that I was working with, and the staff that worked in the hospital. They're basically telling me about what their experience in terms of all the casualties that have come over the last few days, and the intense bombings that they're experienced. We had brought in some anesthesia like medications when we went as a team. That has all run out, so they are basically saying they need anesthetics. I mean, they're doing again surgery with minimal or no anesthesia, which is kind of a cycle that they go through. Is every time they have some kind of team go in, we're carrying our own supplies, and they are not getting anything besides that in terms of medications, antibiotics, and without that open corridor. Not only is the casualties worse, but when they come in, a lot of these patients that survived the initial assault, they end up dying over the next days or weeks because they don't have the proper, resources to keep them alive and save them.
And doctor, so in your experience, many of the victims that you treated, were they men, women, children, all kinds, more one than the other?
So they were families, and with families, we were seeing really more than 50% for children. So I would say 60 to 70% of the patients that I took care of were somewhere between the ages of like 5 and 12 and 13. I took care of a lot of children, but they came in as families. So, their parents came in, a lot of women that came in. These were attacks that happened often at night while they were sleeping in their homes. Their neighbors came in at a time. These were primarily civilians that I took care of, and we're making the assumption that every male could possibly not be a civilian, but I didn't see any signs of like anyone being a combatant at all. It's like everyone came in as families, and again, lots of children, lots of amputations, shredded children from the blast injuries, lots of burns, much more burns than like I'm familiar with seeing with these type of injuries. Also, these bombs that are being laid down have a high a high incendiary I don't know. It's just a lot of burns.
I know that Senator Tammy Duckworth credited you with helping save her life 20 years ago after she was wounded in Iraq. I know you have a lot of experience in trauma and in warfare. How do you compare your experiences in Iraq to the ones that you just had in Gaza?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because what I'm seeing is, the injuries are a lot more intense. I think the weapons that are being used with these giant bombs dropped onto civilian structures are causing a lot more damage. I'm seeing a lot more children, and we were working with a lot less resources. I mean, if Senator Duckworth had, went through this process in Gaza like right now, or anyone else, I don't think they would have survived. It's just there's just not the resources there to kind of do the proper care, and the children. They're small, they're fragile, they're suffering from malnutrition, and they often don't survive these injuries. So it's really sad, and it's unfortunate that this war is being conducted not like against combatants. It's really getting the people who are taking the brunt of this are regular people that just want to have a normal life and we've just been allowing this to happen as we watch. And you know, it's great that we're talking about a ceasefire right now. But you know, even if there is a ceasefire or there isn't a ceasefire, we need to send in humanitarian aid. I mean, this is, you know, something that has nothing to do with whether or not there's fighting going on. If there's no, if the ceasefire doesn't happen, doesn't mean we don't send medical supplies. Doesn't mean we don't send doctors in. They need nurses. They need like medicines. And let's say a ceasefire comes into play. I know I've read these things about like there's 600 trucks going in. Well, what are these trucks? If they're just food, they're not medications, and if they're half full because they're being restricted to go in because of these so-called dual-use items. Again, you know, right now a pair of scissors going into Gaza is not allowed because it's considered dual use. You know, most of the surgical supplies that we need to bring in to be able to do proper surgery is considered dual use. Many of the medications that are just basically anesthetics are not allowed to go in. And again, I don't know why that's not happening. So this has to, you know, we have to open this up, whether there's a ceasefire or not. That has like nothing to do with this humanitarian aid.
Dr. Adam Hamawi, I thank you very much for being with us. I very much appreciate your time.